allotment 10A. Today is a lovely sunny day, so we thought we'd just pop down to the allotment for about an hour, get some seeds in. Really want to get our parsnips in because it says on the back sow between February and April, and it's the 20th of Feb today, so got to get them in. Usually it's got fairly self-explanatory on the back how to plant them, how deep, how far apart. This is a 99p one called Parsnip White Gem. It says to harvest between November and March, so I'm hoping these will be on my Christmas dinner. These are not an F1. I always try not to buy F1s. F1 will be written on the packet somewhere. If you can avoid them, it means that you can also get your own seeds from the plants. So these will probably grow this year and then flower next year, and you can get the seeds from the flowers to use yourself, so that will save you money in the future. I'm also going to try and get these in today. There's some delphiniums. Again, it says plant out around February to March. So I'm going to get these in the ground. Probably won't do very much for a while, but if they grow, there'll be a nice tall pretty border for the summer. The bees love them as well. So the people who owned the allotment before us had these sort of modular fold-up boxes, and they're really handy. So I'm actually going to reuse them for planting and making a cold frame. So today I'm going to basically loosen up the topsoil, give it a rake over, make it fine and sort of grainy. We call it a fine tilth. Then I'm going to make my little low trenches and pop the parsnips in every 2 inches or so along. It's not an exact science, and later on when they start to grow you do have to thin them out, which we didn't get round to doing with our carrots, as you saw in our last video. Then I'm going to cover them over with some plastic that we've got just out the garden, just to keep them warm. At the moment the ground is quite moist, so the condensation should keep them nice and moist and warm, but if they do dry out, obviously we'd have to water them as we went along. So that's what I'm going to plan to do right now. So I'm just raking the soil here, like I say, just to break up the top layer, make it a bit grainy. It's what they call a fine tilth apparently. Once I've done this, I'll start to make my little rows to plant. Cultivated by the Romans, parsnips have been popular for thousands of years. They were largely replaced by potatoes though in the 19th century, when potatoes became more popular and the parsnip sort of lost its way a bit. But thankfully for me it made a good comeback, because they are one of my favourite vegetables of all time. Really tasty. I love roasting them, and then sort of towards the end, about 10 minutes towards the end of finishing cooking, I like to throw a little handful of demerara sugar on to melt it over, or you can cook them in honey. So I'm just making the straight lines, little trenches, not very deep, just guided by some string, so I'm not too wobbly. Ready for planting. So just going to start putting the seeds in. Again, not an exact science, every couple of say an inch or so apart. Often 2 fall in at once, that's just the way it is. I'm keeping my hand out of the wind because the seeds can get blown away and you've lost a lot of them. Once these start to grow, if they're too clumped together, we will thin them out. They should start showing themselves in about 2 to 3 weeks, maybe a little bit longer because it's early in the year to plant them. Some people water them in at this stage, or they water the ground and then plant them. I'm going to cover them over and water them afterwards. Just popping them in. I'm going to do some successive planting, so we're probably going to do 2 more cold frames like this over the next every 2 to 3 weeks, put another one in. so that we get successive crops throughout the months between November and March, hopefully, and we'll have lots of parsnips to keep us through the winter. So just a light watering over the top, and then I'm going to pop the plastic over, really to protect them as they grow, protect them from the frost. We're expecting a cold snap next week apparently. Some people say that when they've started growing and you get frost, it actually makes the taste a bit sweeter, so I'm not too fussed about that. The condensation inside this plastic cover will just drip back down and keep the soil moist and keep them watered, but we'll obviously keep checking on them. I'm going to eat a banana now. Really good fruit to bring down to the allotment because you don't have to wash your hands. You don't have to touch them. So just enough time before we go to rake in the delphinium seeds. I'll give them a little water and hopefully they'll grow into a really pretty colourful border that the bees and the butterflies will like, and I'll like to sit in front of them and enjoy the allotment. It's a bit bleak here at the minute, but they'll all pretty it up. Pop my label in just so I know what I've planted. I hope everyone's enjoying their allotment as much as I am. Thanks everyone for watching. The last video was quite successful. Thanks to my subscribers, and press like if you want to see some more.